This video will help you understand what you need to look for when you are looking for examples to include in your portfolio. The key requirement then is that you must look over your past working experience for examples to prove your competence. So there must be real examples, and there must be a line of sight between the examples that you give us and positions that you've listed in your CV. And then you need to find evidence to confirm your competence for each example, which means looking for naturally occurring evidence. In reviewing those examples, we're going to ask you to respond to 4 questions. Once you've identified an example that you want to use in your portfolio of evidence, we're going to ask you to give some details about that example. And we give you 4 questions that we want you to use in providing us that information. Question number 1 is, what is the example that you will use for this competency? What we're asking you there is to describe the circumstances surrounding the example. When did it arise? The context of that example. In what situation did it occur? Next question is, how does your action in the situation show your competence? So tell us what you did. What role did you play? What action did you take in the situation? You must give us enough information so there's a very clear description of what you personally did. Third question is, why is this a good example of your competence? So what we are looking for here is that you can tell us of a successful outcome because of the actions that you took. Explain why you believe this is good evidence of your personal competence. And then lastly, what evidence can you provide that confirms your role or your actions and the outcomes of your actions? Now we're looking for you to provide some evidence to confirm the explanation that you've given us earlier. So here we want a list of the document names of the evidence you provided that confirms your competence. And just that set of document names, just the ones that are relevant to this example. So let us take the case where you're an SDF submitting a mandatory grant report to a CETA. In answer to question 1, you will explain that it is your responsibility as the SDF. You'll explain which organization you're referring to, which year you're referring to. Question number 2, how does your action in the situation show your competence? Now you need to tell us what you actually did. You might, for example, explain to us that you regularly gather skills needs analysis information that fed into the mandatory grant reporting. You will have probably spoken to line managers about their needs that factored into the mandatory grant report. So you'll have collected a whole lot of information from the organization. You'll have then analyzed that information and captured it onto the CETA upload templates. So explain what you did there, or if you were the manager responsible for it, who was responsible for that and what did they do? Then you'll explain that you uploaded it to the CETA website and you drew down a draft report and you took that to your training committee. You're probably required to have a training committee in your organization. You'll describe then your role in supporting the training committee, and then you'll describe how you uploaded it and received confirmation from the CETA that it had been accepted. Question number 3 is, why is this a good example of your competence in the area? So now you're required to explain why you think this worked out. What was a successful outcome of your action? Well, first thing is, did the training committee accept it? So have you got some sort of confirmation that the training committee has accepted it? Secondly, did the CETA accept it? So if you achieve those outcomes, then you can put that explanation into the answer to question 3. Lastly, now that you've given us the story, provide the actual evidence and list it in your description. So here you're listing the document names of the evidence you have provided that confirms your competence. Typically here you're going to be giving us a copy of the training committee minutes where your role is very clearly described, and you're probably giving us the email back from the CETA that approved the mandatory grant report. How will you know whether the information you've presented in your workbook meets the requirements. We have provided you with the rubrics that the evaluators use in deciding whether the information that you present is fit for purpose. In your guideline document, you will find in red ink the rubrics to be used at every step of the way. Please examine these when you have, for example, described an example that you want to include. Use the rubrics to test whether you believe it meets the requirements.